it's Liz again. Thank you so much for coming back to my channel. This is a fun video here. I was in a bit of a DIY mood, so I decided to come up with some cool things to accentuate my home. Now, I'm not an interior designer at all, and so I have a lot of difficulty coming up with the right things to purchase for my house that kind of go together. So I was thinking, since I don't want to invest a lot of money in it, and because I don't really know what to buy, I'm gonna try a few little things here and there just to kind of spruce up the place. Now, one of them, or actually two of them, are floral arrangements. And as much as I love fresh flowers, I can't really be going and getting flowers every single week. You know what I mean? It's just like not feasible. So I decided to find some really beautiful artificial flowers and make some arrangements out of that. And then the second two, those are the first two. The second two are actually wall hangings, and one's right here behind me, and the other one is downstairs, which I will show you. And they were super, super easy to do, and it's just a cool way of adding like a bohemian flair and making the place look really chic without having to spend a ton of money. There's a bunch of them on Etsy, which are great, and I love them. I just can't justify dropping the coin on that right now. So for those of you who either have a DIY touch or want to save a little bit of cash and spruce up your place, then I think this video will be really good for you. And for those of you who are new to my channel, I want to say hello and welcome. I do a lot of bullet journaling related things, a lot of art, a lot of hand lettering. So be sure to hit the subscribe button below because I have more fun content coming your way. So anyways, without further ado, let's get started.
Okay, so for this first bouquet, you're going to need hydrangeas and roses. I got 4 hydrangeas, 6 roses, and then I also got a plastic bin, some marble printed paper, a floral foam, some like adhesive tape, double-sided tape, and scissors. This is basically all you need. So essentially what you're going to do is lay down your bin and trace on to your paper. I used like a scrapbook type paper, so it was 12 by 12, so I kind of had to puzzle piece it in, and then I realized actually that I was going to need 2 pieces, so right now I was cutting out the larger sides on one paper, and I wasn't even including the scalloped top because that part's not even going to show. Because the hydrangeas are going to cover it. So now with the second sheet of paper, I'm cutting out the narrow side. So there you have all 4 sides, and I use a Tombow mono permanent adhesive tape, but you can use glue stick or double-sided tape, whatever works for you. And I really liked the height of this container, so that's why I chose it. But again, you can choose whatever you want, and it doesn't even matter what color it is because you're going to cover it up anyways. You could probably even use wrapping paper. I think that would look really pretty. And you could even probably trace that all in one thing. So anyways, that's how it came out. And now I'm getting my floral foam, and I made sure to get the like styrofoamy one because it just works better for artificial flowers. And so now I am just kind of measuring them roughly to see like where I need to cut them. And you'll notice I pulled out my heavy duty scissors. So essentially what you're going to do is you're going to like cut the plastic, but at the center of it is like a wire, so that's, you don't cut the wire, you kind of just like wiggle it until it kind of cracks and separates. So that's kind of what I'm doing here when I'm wiggling it back and forth, and I'm also removing the smaller stem. And now I'm doing the same thing with the roses and just trimming them down to size. So now it's the fun part, arranging them. So I like to kind of fluff up the hydrangeas just to get them a little bit more full. And I'm obviously out of shot here, but you'll see in a second that I figured that out and move it. But essentially I decided to switch that up and start with the roses because it was easier for me to work my way from the center out. So right now I'm kind of just roughly laying out my roses to see how much it fills up the container and to see kind of the general layout. So this isn't like the final look, this is just kind of like starting it off, and then that's where I bring in the hydrangeas. And you can see that I actually had to trim some of them because they were standing up too high, and I really wanted them to kind of like hug the like the perimeter of the container. So I'm essentially putting them at like the four corners of the container because I feel like that's where it fills out the most, and that's where you can really utilize the best part of the hydrangea. And that's kind of, how I like to see it. So now you can kind of see that the roses are a little bit uneven. So I'm going through and I'm trimming them again, just to make it a little bit more of a rounded shape and making sure that they all kind of cohesively sit with one another. And then after I did that, I kind of realized the hydrangeas were still a little too high. So I went again and trimmed them down a little bit. And then now the leftover leaves that I had cut off from the hydrangea, I'm just kind of sticking in random places so it just like adds a little bit of body. And there you have it. It's a beautiful centerpiece for your table or a bookshelf or bathroom or bedroom, and it didn't take that long and it only cost a few bucks. Okay, so now we have the orchid arrangement, and what you're needing is 3 orchids, a metal bin or whatever container you'd like, some stones, a hot glue gun, and some scissors. So I actually didn't mention this in my layout because I completely forgot. However, you will notice very soon that you actually also need a floral foam. So there it is, and I'm just opening it up and I'm going to put it in my container. And I didn't really like how high that was because I wanted it to be a lower sitting arrangement, so I'm just cutting it in half. I probably could have used a better tool to cut it in half, but I ended up using my scissors, and since it's really dense, I had to kind of like really wiggle my scissors in there to pop it open. This is obviously an optional step. And then, so what I do is I just hot glue gun it to the bottom so it doesn't wiggle around, and that just kind of keeps it in place. And then right here is where you are going to be cutting your orchids down to size, using that same technique I did before, which you kind of just wiggle it until it pops. I wanted them to be fairly tall, so I didn't cut too much off of it because I figured I could always trim it down later. You can kind of see my son's hand in the background. Um, so anyways, right now what I'm doing is I'm setting them in evenly spaced apart, but I'm also curving the tops because they actually came really straight. So I'm curving them so they kind of all lean a little bit to the left. And I decided to go with only the black stones that I have, because I just wanted to keep it sort of camouflaged and not really like a focal point. So I'm not going to use the other bag of rocks, I'm just using these. And I'm basically just kind of sporadically gluing them around to kind of fit in sort of like a puzzle piece. And you can see my son is helping out, handing me some stones. He really wanted to be a part of the process. So yeah, you'll end up with some like empty spaces, but that's fine because the more that you layer the stones on top, you're going to get rid of those spaces, and then it will look as though the entire thing is filled with stones. And right now I'm just removing all of the excess dried glue just to make sure that it's, cleaned up and it doesn't look as though there's glue all over the place. And that's it. So for the next DIY is a wall hanging, and you'll see that I'm actually going to lay out all of my supplies for both of them. So you're going to need 2 brass rings, some yarn, gray, white, and black, and then also some rope for the next one, and also some scissors. So you're going to need 40 strings of white, 40 of the gray, and 20 of the black, and they're all going to be roughly 28 inches long. So what I'm doing is I'm starting with the center, and the center I chose to be black. So what I'm doing is just tying it onto the ring, and this is kind of just like a closer shot. Please excuse my horrible nails. I really should have just removed all nail polish, but I didn't, and I'm highly embarrassed, so don't hate. But anyways, you are double knotting it. And then after that, you are putting on the gray on either side. So, like I said, 20 of the black, and then 20 gray on the left, 20 gray on the right, and then you're following that again with the white. 20 white on one side, 20 white on the left side. So it's really simple. And mine has fringe on top, which you can definitely cut off, but I just chose to leave it because I kind of liked that look. And then what I did was I laid down a piece of painter's tape on the table just to kind of use it as a guide. And then I'm cutting down from the tape to the center to create like a sort of V shape. And that's it. It's super, super simple. It's really chic. It really filled out the space that I needed to in my gallery wall, and I just love how it came out. The fourth and final one is another wall hanging, and this one was with the rope. So you're going to need one brass ring and the rope. And what I did with this actually was I untied the knotted ends. So you'll see that once you untie the knotted ends, it actually turns out to be three larger ropes, or three smaller ropes, I should say. This one actually took a minute to untie. For some reason, the other end was like really easy, and this one was really hard. But anyways, you just unravel them and kind of just untwist the whole thing so you can end up with the three separate ropes of like the bundles of yarn. Once you have all of those separated, you are then going to grab one, and at the center you're going to create a loop on the ring. And you're going to do that with all three of them, just pulling through, creating a loop, so you have three separate, I guess, looped um, ropes. I don't know if that makes sense. But anyways, you can see it. So what I did with the first one, which was the one in the center, I like to always start from the center, is I kind of comb it out because it is two pieces and I want to separate it into three, because what I'm going to do with this one is braid it. Um, and what I started to do here was just braid it, and I didn't realize that because it's so long, it ended up getting knotted up really fast. So I obviously needed to like backtrack, and you can see right here there's like quite a bit of knots. So that's not good. So what you really have to do is lay them out very separately and kind of lay them over as you braid them. So as you can see now, I'm actually like braiding it way more carefully, and I'm keeping track of each and every piece and where the ends go, because that's the only way to kind of make sure it doesn't get knotted up. And so what you're going to do is just continue to kind of do like a slow braiding process all the way until you get to the opposite end of the ring. And then once you get to the opposite of the ring, you're going to tie it there so it's secure and it stays in place. And I just kind of halved it and kind of flanked it on both sides, and then double knotted it. So nothing super technical or fancy, just keep it in place. And double knotting it just kind of made sure that it like hung more towards the center. And then yeah, so that's the first one. And then after that, with the second loop, you want it to be right next to it. And what I wanted to do here is kind of just twist it the way it originally came. So because it originally came twisted, it actually went really, really easily, and it looked beautiful because that was how it was intended to be. So we're just kind of retwisting it even though we untwisted it. And then you just tie it on the end right next to the first one, so that way they're touching side by side. And then you're going to do the exact same thing with the other side, just twisting it, making sure you don't get it all tangled, and then tying it down to the bottom. So that way they're all kind of taut and going straight across the entire brass ring. So now you have a little bit of like space in between each one. So what I wanted to do was fill that up. So what I'm doing here is I'm actually folding up. You can see that the folded end, because they're very, very long, and I'm just trimming them in half. So each of the hanging pieces, I'm trimming them in half, so that way the entire hanging could be a little bit shorter, and so that way I can have extra pieces to hang. So now I'm just kind of separating them into like smaller chunks, and then I'm tying two of those chunks in between each section. So there should technically be four little extra chunks of string that I'm tying on either side of the center piece. So once those are done, then I just kind of go through with my scissors and I trim off the little excess hairs because I just didn't want that extra bunching on top. And then I just go through and kind of like lightly comb it with my fingers so as to not tangle it, but also to just like fill it out and like make it more full. Then with one of the other pieces that I cut off, I just am creating a I guess like a tie for the top. So I'm just tying it on either side of, and I'm making sure like the knots are going to the back side of the ring. And then I'm doing it on both sides, and then I'm just going to trim off the edges just so it has something to hang up with. And there you have it, a beautiful wall hanging, super easy, super, super cheap, that only costs $2. So yeah, let me know if you guys try these because I would love to see what you come up with. Thanks so much for watching.